Hi, and welcome to episode 106 of the Untethered podcast. Today we have Danelle Augustine joining us, and Danny's been an SLP for 5 years. After working in a variety of settings, she found her love for dyslexia intervention, myofunctional therapy, feeding, and all things birth to three. Not only has diving into these areas helped her business, but it's also allowed her to fall in love with the SLP field again. She went from almost switching careers to now having a boutique-style private practice in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, serving families in an office and home setting. Connecting with her families and building those relationships is what gets her up every morning, and her 20-cent coffee, of course. In addition to her love for therapy, she's found a new passion for helping other SLPs gain freedom in their finances and their careers. She's hoping to promote a community of SLPs grounded in transparency, humility, and understanding the immense value of having a plan. If we want to bring about change and light to the SLP field, we must start from within. Quick disclaimer, all information, content, and material of this podcast are the opinions of the speakers and is for the informational purpose only and not intended to serve as a substitute for the consultation, diagnosis, and or medical treatment of a qualified healthcare provider. Welcome to the Untethered podcast. I am your host, Hallie Balkin. I'm a certified orofacial myologist, feeding specialist, and mentor. This podcast is all about getting your questions answered and collaborating with colleagues to bring you the most up-to-date information in the orofacial myofunctional therapy, tethered oral tissue, and airway space. I challenge you to keep an open mind and join my mission to get this information out to the masses. Let's get started. Danny, I am super excited that you're here today. When I found you on Instagram, I was like, oh, she is so my people. We have got to have you on the podcast. So welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. We were talking about this before the record button was hit. I'm fangirling, but I'm controlling it. I am.
I love it. But at the same time, you know me, I'm like, stop it. You know, we are like the same people, like really. But I mean, and it's so funny. People say that to me and I'm like, that's sweet. I accept that. I receive that compliment. But at the same time, I'm like, you guys will, someone's going to say that to you soon. Now that you've started a podcast, you just wait until you're about, 30, 40 episodes in, you're going to get some fangirls too. But no, let's talk about our topic today because, this is going to be a little bit different than some of the things we talk about, but you guys know, I like to talk about some real world issues. And I think that this will apply, even if you're not an SLP, this will apply if you're an OT, if you're an RDH, we've got all different professionals who listen to this podcast. But one of the really big issues out there facing the SLP world in particular is that we need to address, but we also should not get stuck on. We're going to address it and move forward. Is that there's some big SLP burnout going on. And so I'm going to turn this over to you and let you start talking to us about this topic. But how do we move beyond this? I mean, let's first talk about it, and then we'll talk about maybe ways that we can start to address it and move on from it so that we can enjoy our careers again.
Yes. Okay. This is a little dangerous that you gave me the openness to just
free reign, girl. Have at it.
Yes. Okay. So first of all, I want to come from a place of, I get the burnout because I was burnt out too.
Yep.
And
I've been
there. Yeah. And I remember, Hallie, I know at one point you were burnt out as well.
Yep.
And part of that burning out is a little disappointment. And I think, unfortunately, and that's something that I hope to do with like my podcast and my page, is to be transparent with these new grads that are coming up with what the field is actually like, because it's not about good or bad. I mean, what in this world is black and white, right?
Right.
But it's just about understanding, like, these are the facts. These are the things that you might come upon, whether you're a speech pathologist, an occupational therapist, anything. With anything, nothing is perfect, but just understanding this is what it is, and it is what you make it. And these are some challenges you're going to face. Here's some ways that you're going to deal with it. So there are real issues facing the SLP field, just like you said. Pay is one of them. Nobody wants to talk about the money. But if
except for me and you.
Yes.
Let's talk about it.
Yes. Let's talk about the money, because people, and I think there's this like icky feeling that people get, especially since, well, I'm here with one of my professors in undergrad say, I'm a speech pathologist. I'm here with my cardigan and pearls, and I'm here to help people and save the world. That's great. I want to get paid for that, though. And it doesn't make you bad, evil, or greedy to feel that way, especially if you feel that you bring a valuable service, which we bring a completely valuable service. I mean, we help people with eating and talking, two of my favorite things. I don't know about you.
Me too.
Yes. So I think one thing that, to go back to the pay piece, a lot of us are sort of promised these salaries and things in grad school. There's this number floating around with $75,000 a year. Like, and I'm gonna use real numbers here. We're not save the fluff for the marshmallows. We're gonna use real numbers here. The salary floating around of the average SLP salary in the US is $75,000 a year, which it is, but a lot of us are not making that. I was not making that.
I certainly wasn't when I started. Yeah.
No, especially as a CF.
Yeah.
You know, employers love CFs. Why?
You can pay them less.
Yes, yes, yes. And again, part of advocating for and educating this upcoming generation of their worth. But I know for me, pay was a big part of that burnout because I felt like I had done all the right things. I got the master's degree. And I've said this before, I had the cords on my graduation thing, and I had some cute saying on my graduation cap. I don't remember what it was, some speech thing I got off of Pinterest. And I did all this right stuff, and then I get into my job, and I was like, dang, like, you only gonna offer me $45,000 a year? Like, that's it?
Yeah.
That's it? That's all I get?
And then they work you like a horse.
Yeah, and exactly. And then there's this guilt behind that because it's like, well, I'm helping people, and the personality type that I find this field draws, and it's not everyone, but I'm going to make a little bit of a generalization here. We want to please people. We want to make people happy. That's why we got into this field, is we enjoy seeing that smile on little Sally Sue's face when she finally gets her R sound right, or whatever it is. And it's so hard for us to find that balance of, okay, money, helping people, not overworking myself and setting boundaries because I am not a cart horse. Where can I find that?
Yeah. But you know what, you make a really good point too, because I think it also shapes our identity as a speech pathologist. If you're coming out of grad school and you're a CF, you already, you know, and I don't know if SLPs realize this, but like OTs, and I'm not sure about PTs, but I think the same is true for PTs, but OTs enter the workforce immediately with a full license right out of grad school. Yeah. And SLPs don't. We're on a limited license as a clinical fellow. And so, you know, with that already shapes your mindset of, well, I can't practice on my own without supervision. So it's almost like I'm not good enough. And then we get stuck in that I'm not good enough. And we start to believe that we're actually not good enough. And then we start to think, well, I'm in a helping profession, so I really don't want to push the envelope here because, yeah, I knew what I was getting into. And while I thought I'd be making all this money, you know, I guess like I'm not working on my own yet and I need supervision. So some of my money goes to pay for that. But then we get stuck. Okay. Even if that's true, and I get it, you know, maybe CFs command a little bit less because they do require supervision. And that's just how it goes in this, you know, in the SLP world. Well, once you're fully licensed, things should change. And maybe also on that speed, you know, maybe you have to realize that, yeah. And I come at this from both a private practice owner and having been that CF, right? And having been someone who worked for the schools and having been somebody who's worked for a private practice. You know, if your private practice takes insurance, the person that you're working for may only be able to pay you so much because insurance only reimburses so much. So there's the reality of what somebody can pay you and the reality of what you feel you're worth, and do those match? And, you know, anyway, so there's a lot to unpack on that. But, you know, kind of going back to my initial point, I think a lot of that burnout comes from, you know, having these expectations that are mismatched from reality. And, you know, it's almost like you're selling the pipe dream, but then once you get there, like I said, it's mismatched. It doesn't match what we were sold and what we thought we were getting ourselves into. So like you said, we're disappointed. We are disappointed. And then we have this work piled on us and we get burnt out and we're like, well, this is not worth it because I'm not even getting paid what I thought I was going to get paid. Right. And so again, a lot to unpack there, but it just from my own personal experience, I thought I'd be making more. I mean, I knew what I would be making coming into the field, but I also thought I'd be getting these step increases working in the schools, and there was a freeze. So I didn't get that. And I was burnt out because I never wanted to work in the schools. And so it was like, I'm not getting paid well enough. I don't like my job. I don't know if I want to be an SLP anymore. Hey, I actually took an 8-month break after I left the schools and was like, I think I'm done with this. And then I missed the kids and came back. But yeah, it threw me through a major loop. And a lot of that was the financial piece. I was like, I could be making more money as an SLP in a different, setup, like in either private practice or working for myself and so on and so forth. So I know I've gone like way down the rabbit hole here, but and I'll turn it back over to you. But I think that there's just so much that's sold to us, right? When we get into this field. And then once we get in, it's like, oh, no, honey, we're not going to pay you that. And oh, by the way, you can't even practice on your own. So why would you expect that kind of pay? And then you're kind of like, then you start to get into, like I said before, that identity factor of, wow, am I even worth this much pay? I mean, this is a helping profession. Like we didn't get into a helping profession to make that kind of money.
That would be wrong.
Yes. Like, right. And here's the thing. I always say, like, there isn't right and wrong. There just is. It just is. And so we either have to accept what is, or we need to change what is so that it better aligns with who we believe we are. Like that. And that I can't fully take credit for that one because I actually paid somebody a lot of money to mentor me. And that was something she had said to me at one point, where she said, there's no right and wrong. There just is, Hallie. Like, and I was like, oh, yeah. Okay. That's right. That makes sense. Because right versus wrong is totally subjective to your situation, how you define it. What's right for you, it may be wrong for somebody else. So it just is, right? And it all ties back into identity. Who do you identify as? Because someone else, and I even said, I was like, I think somebody else would be perfectly happy making this amount of money for this school job because it is one of the higher paying schools in the nation. And I came out, getting paid, I think it was like, it was $51,128 and whatever change. That was my annual salary as a CF, but that's where I stayed for a couple of years. And then when my 3-year contract was up, I was like, peace, I'm out of here. This is not where I wanted to work. This is not the amount of money I want to make. And if you're not going to even give me step increases for like my, I'm out. I'm done. Yeah.
And what you said was great. Like, I like how you said you weren't satisfied with that. And I think part of that is, I think the burnout is the guilt of you're not satisfied with what's going on, the guilt associated with that without the action to do something about it.
Right.
And something that I've learned, which is very, very, very akin to what you were saying earlier, is I'm not going to just accept that's how it is.
Yes.
And I think, and this is in all areas of life, and it's with your career, it's with money as well. That's why I enjoy talking about money, is just, oh, well, this is just how it is. I'm just going to live paycheck to paycheck. Oh, well, I'm just not going to make the money I want to make. That's cool. Like,
if that's good for you, you do you.
Right, exactly. Like, there's plenty of people who are very happy making, and like I said, I'll throw a number out there because there's nothing wrong with making $50,000 a year.
Yep.
The average household income in America, I think it went up to about $59,000. I think that's the average now household income.
Right. So it could be a dual income. Yeah. Yeah.
So there's nothing wrong with that. My issue is when you're not satisfied with that, and just like you said in the beginning, like dwelling on that, marinating in just that, being ticked off and upset, and I'm gonna get on Facebook and take this out on everybody else. And well, no, like, okay, this sucks, but now let's get in the kitchen and start mixing some things together to figure out how to fix this. Yeah. A great point that you brought up, and I've discussed this on all of my rantings on my Instagram page, is this idea, and I like how you can understand it from both a business owner perspective and then you were that CF, because there are some serious issues happening even there. I've gotten comments before, or messages in my DMs from people who have employees in private practice, and they say, well, I would love to be able to pay them more, but insurance doesn't reimburse me anymore. Like if I paid them what they would want to get paid, I'd go out of business, which
Right.
that is very real. And that doesn't make that private practice greedy or wrong. Just like you said, there's really not much right and wrong when it comes to this stuff. But to me, if option A and B stink, there's 24 other letters for me to pick from.
I love that.
So a great example for me, I do not plan on hiring employees and growing at this point. Maybe contractors, maybe, but even in preparing for that, I'm not going to completely take that off the table for myself. I am only in network with one insurance company. There are certain insurances around here. I know what the rates are, and I'm not going to get a network with them because they're not going to pay me.
Right. And you have choice, right? We have choice. This is a choice we get to make as business owners. And I get a lot of people who come to me and say, well, I live in a rural area, Hallie. Like I can't do private pay services. Yes, you can. Mm-hmm. You can charge private pay services at a rate relative to what I would charge in my area based on cost of living and what people will be able to pay for your services. Now, don't undercharge. That's not what I'm saying, right? Yeah. But what is your cost? You need to have better understanding, right? Of like, what is cost of living here? What are other similar service providers charging? Now, I'm not saying go price fixing or any of that. Let's get off that conversation. Okay. But we have to do our due diligence. We have to do research. We have to understand what the market will pay, what commands a specialist rate or a therapy rate, right? And this whole idea of, what you're saying is like, you have that choice. You are the one who gets to say yes or no. You're the one who gets to decide, do I stay in this job or do I go? And for me, I felt trapped because I had a contract where if I left before my 3 years were up, I would have to pay the school county back $22,000, not the school county, because they had put that money towards my schooling, towards my grad program in exchange for a guaranteed contract in the schools. It didn't decrease what they would pay me salary wise once I started working for them, which, for me as a grad student, as an undergrad who was applying to grad school, this seemed like a great opportunity, even though I never wanted to go into the schools. And I should have listened to my intuition and probably not have gone that route, but it's what I chose. That was the choice I made. And so I stuck with it because for me, it's important if I'm in a contract or I agree to something, it's very important for me to stay in integrity with what I say I'm going to do, to the extent I've agreed to do it. However, once I fulfilled my obligation, if it doesn't work for me anymore, I also have a choice to change that. And that's where, I think there's so many people get very stuck in the black and white. There is not black and white. You can still stay in integrity. You can still do what you say you're going to do to the extent that you are contracted to do it or committed to do it. But then also when there's an opportunity for one of those other letters in the alphabet, as you mentioned, you have the choice to take it or not take it. That is your choice. Like we are always functioning in choice. And that is something I've also learned from one of my mentors. If we choose to stay in choice, that's when opportunities present themselves. When we choose to be open, when we have this willingness to be open, that's when opportunities present. But if you are closed off and you want to choose to stay stuck, because that also is a choice. Yeah. You want to choose that, then guess what? Opportunities don't present themselves. Maybe they do, but you don't see them. You especially don't see them as an opportunity because you're so closed off that you're like, you won't even pay 2 seconds of attention to what flies your way. So, it's one of those things where like we kind of get ourselves into burnout by the choices we make, but we can also make choices that will take us out of burnout. And so that, and that's been a big life lesson for me. I actually became a Beachbody coach and got into network marketing and replaced my income in the schools, my 3rd year in the schools. And that is why I was able to quit my job on the day that my contract ended, because I had made just as much as a Beachbody coach as I was getting paid by the schools. And I was like, peace, I'm out. And that's why I was like, oh yeah. Oh yeah, girl. Oh yeah. And then I was like, you know what? I really don't want to listen to adults whine about wanting to lose weight, but not wanting to put in the work. Like, this is not who I am. And so I was like, I liked the product. I loved, using it myself, but I was like, I'm also so like, I'm too internally referenced to like work for somebody else. And this still feels to me like I'm working for somebody else. Like I need to be the CEO, truly leading the ship here. And so I did go to another MLM because I was like, maybe that's the problem. I'm too close to like a lot of the politics and stuff at a corporate level. And like, I just need out. Right. So I switched to this other MLM. I have lots of success there too. And then I was like, oh, I'm so over this. And that at that point, I was like, I really missed the kids. I really missed the kids. And so I went to work for a private practice for a year before opening my own. And I will tell you, I thought I was done being an SLP. I was like, I am done. If I can make this money doing something else, like, why the heck am I burning myself out in the schools? Like, why am I allowing them to demand all these things of me that they're also telling me how to do my job? They're telling me that I can't do things that are in scope. They're telling me that I have to do therapy a certain way and that I have to document this way. And I have to, and I was like, this is not working for me.
Where's your C's? Where's your master's degree?
Right. Right. Exactly. I was like, I can't do this. But I will tell you, I got pulled back in because I'm like 8 months with not being an SLP, just doing like network marketing. I was like, well, this is freedom. I feel like I'm getting to make my own choices, but I really miss the kids. So there's got to be another way that I can be an SLP and really fully enjoy that profession. And so, but that was a choice I made. That was a choice I made. And the funny story about it too is that I accidentally found a Shaun T Insanity workout on the TV because we had been like rained out of the condo we were renting when the water heater above us exploded and like just started raining through the condo that we were renting, like through the vents. And I'm like brushing my teeth in the morning and here comes the water through the vents. And I'm like, what is going on? So we were displaced with an old dog who like, we didn't want to leave alone all the time. So I'm sitting like watching infomercials in a Marriott, like 2-bedroom condo that they gave us. So we're in for like 6 weeks and I'm watching this and I'm like, oh, this seems like a good workout. Yeah, I lost some weight in grad school and I really want to maintain that as I start my new job. And so this was like the summer going into my first job. I actually bought it, started doing like the workouts. I was like, I love this stuff. This is so my speed. Like was like making the Shaun T meals. Like I was like, this is great. Drinking the shake. And then I actually didn't drink the shake for a long time. I was like, I'm not getting on board with that. And then finally I did. And finally, like my coach who had like connected with me in the beginning, she finally like a year later, because I was so miserable at my job, I was like, there's got to be something better out there. Let me just try this. Right. So I started doing it and hey, I mean, I was like grinding though. I was like that, probably also contributed to the burnout because here I was like working this job and then I was going and running like free fitness classes and things to get people to like buy the product and then come do our weekly workout with us and, on the phone after work. And I mean, I was pounding the pavement. I was really like hustling. And that's also not who I am. Like when I get into hustle mode, I get into burnout mode. And
yeah.
I know this is like, your podcast episode, so I don't want to take over. But one of the other things that one of my mentors basically said was like, there are a lot of people out there who work very hard. Hard work does not equal money.
Okay. Can you please say that? I literally said this. Who was I recording with? No, who was? Oh yeah. It was on Instagram Live for a bunch of new SLP grads. Say that again, please. What was that?
Hard work does not equal money. There are plenty. Yeah. Think about it. There are people out there working 3 jobs just to pay their bills.
But they have a car note that's almost the size of my mortgage payment.
Right.
Which is nothing wrong with that when you can afford it. But anyways, what did I say? I said, oh, that rat in that wheel. I said, he is going, isn't he? He is running. He is moving. He's panting. I said, do rats sweat? I have no idea. He's sweating. But is he getting anywhere? No.
Nope, that's that rat race.
No. That is 100%. And that's why and I'm sure we both get in this mode of just like, I need to preach it because you can work really hard and still not be successful. Do you need to work hard to be successful? Yes.
No. Well, no, arguably no.
Well, that's true. Well, that's an interesting question. Like putting plans into place and systems into place.
Here's the thing, right? Are you doing physical labor? Are you like, so for me, like, how do you define hard work? So some people would say, well, it's physical, like manual labor, right? Or maybe it's putting in 60 to 80-hour weeks up front. And I'm not going to say it's easy to build a business. That's not what I'm saying. But what I have learned was when I started my private practice, I was working like 4 days a week treating. And then I eventually got pregnant pretty quickly, brought on somebody to help in the afternoons. And I've always worked from a place of, these are my hours. I will not make exceptions. You don't get me after hours. Like, yes, like have I blurred the lines a little bit sometimes or worked weekends? Yes, but that was my choice. I chose to do that. And I also was like, for me, one of my top values was making money and was also family. And a lot of SLPs don't have that in their top value ladder. So if you don't have those up there, you're going to make choices based on whatever your top values are. And that's why they sometimes seem misaligned with what you're actually saying you want. So people come out and say, oh, I want to make money. Oh, I want to put my family first. Oh, I want to build a business that allows me to be home with my kids. I've been saying that since I was like in my early 20s. And I was like, I'm going to be a millionaire by the time I'm 30. And it didn't happen, but I said it happened. It happened. It just didn't happen by the time I was 30. Right. And so it was like one of those things where it's been such a subconscious identity of mine for so long that I was like, well, if to get there, I have to work from a place that aligns with that, because if I'm not, right. And so part of my overdoing, because I say I'm a recovering overdoer and I've been burnt out, part of that was I always wanted to give my family's top-notch services. And I would overcommit to my families that I did take on. And I would overcommit to but that was who I was. That was part of my identity. So, when I say like, you don't have to work hard, you don't. I didn't have to do all those things to get to where I was today. Is it easy to build a business? Well, some might say yes. But I'm not going to say it was easy. I will say there were hard things about it, but I also think a lot of it comes into how you handle the fires you have to put it out, how you handle like the day to day, how quickly you decide to not be the jack of all trades and specialize, how quickly you decide to bring on help in your business, whether it's a contractor treating or a contractor doing your intake calls. Like, there's a lot of things I held on to that I did not have to hold on to for longer than I did, because I was a control freak and I was like, nobody can do this better than me. This is my business.
It's your baby. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's where I say, like, it doesn't have to be hard. Like, do you have to put in the time? Do you have to put in the effort? Absolutely. But I think a lot of people make it 10 times harder than it ever needs to be. And that's also, I think, what holds a lot of people back from making the money they say they want to make, because they are their own obstacles standing in their own way. Yeah. And when you start, the biggest thing that I've learned is when I started to release the reins and I got rid of my control freakness, I was also able to allow other people to work with me, take on the tasks that I actually hired them to do, and not feel like I also had to do them if they didn't do them as fast as I did, or, as perfectly as I did, because perfectionism is not a thing. We can talk about that too. But it was one of those things where I was like, wow, this could have been so much easier if I had just brought on that person a little, 3 years ago. Like, why did I let myself just do it all for so long? So anyways, yeah.
And I feel like that's what leads to burnout, is like, whether it's whether you're building a business or even if you're at a school job or working for someone else, this idea that like, you have to take it all on. And if you don't take it on, then it's not going to be okay. And it's hard to let go, because, and I've said this before, SLPs really are some of the best people. They really are. Like, we care so much about our clients. Yes, too much. Like, I'm still working on saying no. Like, one of the OTs that I share a lot of patience with, she still fusses at me.
It's a good practice, go stand in front of the mirror, say no like 15 times, do it again tomorrow.
Yes, it is a practice. And like every day I post on my stories about my 20-cent coffee, it's because I like Starbucks, and I have to remind myself that Starbucks isn't getting my retirement money. There's nothing wrong with Starbucks, but anyways. But
priorities. It's priorities, and it's staying in choice. You are making a choice. So even though you like Starbucks, you're like, I don't value it enough to not have this money for something else. Like, I value that more than a cup of Starbucks. So maybe I get the Starbucks once in a while, but it's not going to be on my daily, routine. Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. No, I think that's awesome.
And that word intentionality, that actually, so me and my husband, one of our good friends, he passed away he was 26.
Oh, wow.
And he passed away from cancer.
Oh,
And he was actually an amazing pastor, speaker at 26 years old.
mm,
Uh, and one of his big things that he always preached and talked about was intentionality.
yeah,
And learning that from him, and just even watching him battle cancer for that year and eventually passing away, that's something that even me and my husband have really just honed in on as one of our values. Like as I'm creating, we're running a business or whatever, as he's moving up in his job,
yeah,
because it really just bleeds into everything.
yeah,
Because if you don't make choices, then choices will be made for you.
yeah.
And that is in
Well
everything. And
said.
I
Yep.
think that burnout, um, you can burn, like that career burnout that we see for SLPs. I hurt for them, because I see that not just in their career, but it bleeds into other areas of their lives. And that's why I like to talk about money a lot, because your treasure is where your heart is. So where you're putting your money is where you're putting your heart. That's why it's really for me and my husband, it's really important for us to be on the same page with where we're putting our money, because where we're putting our treasure is where we're putting our heart. Where we're putting our treasure is where we're putting our goals. Where
Yeah.
we're putting our treasure is where we're putting our dreams as a family, as a unit. And those little decisions, just like you said, is Starbucks evil? No. Is Starbucks right or wrong? No. But I'm choosing not to put my treasure there, because that's not where my heart is.
Yeah.
I'm choosing to put my treasure in things that matter, that matter to me and my husband and our family. And
Hmm.
I think what ends up happening is people don't realize that they're doing that.
Yeah.
People don't realize, and again, money's a great example, because it bleeds into so many areas of our lives. It's limiting, especially if you hate your job and you ain't got any money, it's hard to leave it, right?
Right.
Um, but it bleeds into all of that, and it's something that no one likes to talk about.
It's like a taboo topic, but we all need it to live. So
Yes, and it contributes so much to our satisfaction with life. Not that you do not need money to be happy. You do
correct.
not need it to be happy.
They're two separate entities. I
Exactly.
think we were actually like commenting on, you posted this and I commented on it
Yeah.
and I was like, yes, thank you. Because, if you are miserable when you have $1, you're still going to be miserable when you have $7 million. Like
Yeah.
it doesn't matter how money
Mhm.
does not buy happiness. Money
Yeah.
can buy a lot of things, but you're going to be that same miserable person you were
Mhm.
when you were poor if you don't work on yourself. And I think that, there's a lot of this stuff out there. There's so many resources out there on how to like get out of victim mode, get your mindset right. And I've even talked about like, one of my mentors, Jim Fortin, his be do have, methodology, his paradigm where he talks about, get out of the doing every day. You get stuck in like the doing. Well, I have to do this so that I can have that. So then I can be that person that has all these things or blah, blah, blah. No, you have to be in your subconscious identity first. You have to be the person who identifies as like you are actually being, Danny, the person who identifies as a retiree who's got wealth. You
Mhm.
identify as that wealthy retiree, even though you're nowhere near that point of your life yet, but that's part of your identity. And
Right.
that's why you're able to say, you know what? Starbucks is great once in a while, but it's not important to me to have it every day. Like
Right.
I've got my 20-cent coffee here and that I'm perfectly happy with that. And you are, because you're choosing to be,
Mhm.
and so again, you're staying in choice, but you're also operating from this place of being your future self now. Right? Those actions you're talking about taking today allow you to be that future person. So that's where we all need to get into this like mindset of like, who do I need to be today to get
Yeah.
to where I want to be a year from now, to get to
Mhm.
where I want to be 2 years from now, to get to where I want to be 50 years from now? And like, look, do things change? Yes. Will you change? Yes. Do you think? But as far as financial planning goes, and like, I know I'm not a financial planner or analyst or any of that stuff. Like, don't come to me for
Huh.
financial advice. But you
I'm
know,
not good either.
right? But it's still, but we need to be talking about it at least on the surface level of like, who are you being? Where are you
Yeah.
choosing to put your money? Because if you say you're stuck, but you're going out and you're doing takeout every day and you're, buying fancy bags and cars, you're choosing to remain stuck. That is a choice you are making. And I know people are going to be like, oh, sucker punch to the gut. That hurts. But it's
Mhm.
true. It's the
Yeah.
truth. And I don't sugarcoat things. I know you don't sugarcoat things. You're like, no fluff here. So
Yeah, know.
So you have that choice. You can choose to stay or you can choose to change. So, that's your choice. But yeah, going back to that whole thing, we all get stuck in the doing, the daily doing, because I have to do this to have that so I can be this person. No, that's backwards. We need to be the person so that we can then go out and do the things to then have the thing, so flip it around, people.
Exactly.
You got this backwards.
Exactly. But the thing is, Hallie, that is what's normal. And I try to like get this through in my conversations with people and on social media. Normal
There's no such thing as normal, so we can just put that out there.
But like what everyone else is doing, it's not about, I feel like sometimes we just get stuck in what everyone else is doing. Oh, well, this is what everyone else does, so I'm just going to do that. But
I talk about that. And I talk about this in the tongue tie world. And, just because it's common to snore doesn't mean it's normal. Just because it's common that tongue ties exist doesn't mean it's normal. So just because it's common that we feel stuck and that we're in debt and that's how a lot of the country operates here doesn't mean it's normal.
Right. And it doesn't mean that you have to do that. And I encourage people, stop taking comfort in the fact that what you're doing is what everyone else is doing.
Right. Well, comfort is easy. Yeah. Being comfortable is easy and it feels hard to change. But you know what? We can also make a choice and say, this is going to feel a little uncomfortable, but I can choose to let it be easy. I can choose to let these things go and I can choose ease in my life. Because, and this is something that another one of my mentors, I have a lot of mentors, pointed out to me on a conversation I had with him a couple of weeks ago, because we were talking about the success that I've had online in the past year. And he said, if there was advice that you could give to this group, because we were on like a group mastermind type of call, what would that be? And so we got into conversation. And again, like I said earlier in our conversation today, he said, what did you choose? And I said, well, I chose ease. I chose what's easy. And he said, well, hold on, because for most people, what's easy would be just not doing the damn thing, because that's easy, that's comfortable, and they don't have to put themselves out there. They don't have to, and here's something else that's come up a lot too. We are all going to be judged, positive, negative. We are all judged on a daily basis. Somebody listening right now is judging me and you for saying the things we're saying. Some of it's going to be positive judgment and some of it's going to be negative. So who cares? You're going to find the people who align with you and they're going to want to hang, and the people who don't will find somebody else, and that's fine.
Not everyone's going to like you.
Right. And you don't need it. You don't need everybody to like you.
No.
But the thing is, you can choose to, the person who chooses to put themselves out there is the person who's going to have success at some point. Yes, you're going to fail. You got to get up and keep going. I talked about that on a podcast recently. But really, it all comes back to, he said, okay, let's dive into this a bit deeper, because what you're saying for most people, for like the common thing would be to choose just to not do anything, just to stay where we are, because staying is comfortable and it feels good, even though it doesn't feel good because we're stuck. And I said, okay, let me rephrase that. So when I say I basically self-sabotage and tell the universe, like social media, my email list, my ads, everything, hey, we're going to be doing this on this date. Well, guess what? Now that I've put it out there, staying in integrity is one of my high values. That's really important to me. I can't not do it because I'm afraid. So if I chose not to do it because of like a legit reason, like, sure, I have that choice. I can make that. But if I'm choosing not to do it because I'm afraid of putting myself out there, who am I at this point? Like, I'm basically out of alignment with myself. I'm out of integrity. But in doing that, I can choose the easy route and still deliver this, or choose the hard route and still deliver this. And so for me, like one example with my online business would be, I can choose to do a live launch where I am literally in your face for an hour every single day, 5 days in a row. And then we open the cart to the program, which people have seen me do 4 times for Feed the Peds. Or I can pre-record a launch ahead of time, and the videos drop still 1 video a day, but it's pre-recorded, which is what I'm actually going to be doing for the first time for my third, big public Myo membership launch that's happening next week. So, it'll be in the past by the time this airs, but anyways, whatever. But here's the thing, right? I was like, I can't live launch a program 7 times in a year because these things take a lot of my energy. And and that's hard for me. That is going the hard route. So for me, I really enjoy live launching Feed the Peas. I have a really good time doing it. I only do it 3 times a year. I am willing to do that and put my energy in for those weeks that I'm live launching that program. I was like, but for the membership, what feels good to me is doing a pre-recorded launch.
Mhm.
And we're going to do it so that they still get the launch. They still get free CE hours. People still learn how to screen their first myo patient. I'm still 100% in integrity with what I promised,
Right.
but it's pre-recorded and I don't have to give up all my energy that week. I can just be in the group and chat with people and show up that way and still stay in integrity, right? But it's choosing ease. And guess what? Other people will say, you're crazy. Why are you doing this? That's not how you launch something, because that's what that's what the market tells me.
Mhm.
Well, I'm choosing what feels right to me. I'm following my intuition. And this is what allows me to say, business doesn't have to be hard.
Mhm.
But people stay in the hard because it's like, well, I took this person's course and they said I have to do it this way. And I'm paying this mentor and he says I have to do it that way. And well, I'm just like so overwhelmed right now because I have like 75 things going on. And I was like, no, none of that anymore. Do less
Yeah.
better, Hallie. And so
Yeah.
if we can get to a point where we can start to trust ourselves and listen to ourselves and stay in choice and still stay committed to the things that we say we're going to do. Obviously, don't overcommit, and that's easier
Right.
said than done. Um,
Yes.
but it all comes back to choosing the ease route. Now, ease doesn't mean you're not working, but it
Yeah.
means that you're staying in alignment with who you are and what feels good to you while still delivering to the market what you promised. And so for me, that's been a big lesson. And that's probably the biggest lesson that I learned last year, because I was hitting, like, I killed my adrenals last year.
Mm.
Getting to 7 figures meant I killed my adrenals.
Mhm.
And that's not something that I will allow to continue, because my health is important to me. And what good is money if you don't have health?
Right.
So, anywho, that was a big rant on my end. But, I thought it was important to say, because people are watching what I'm doing. And I want everyone to know that, like, yes, it looks so easy and beautiful on the outside, but there's a lot of big business decisions and things that get made on the inside that you're not privy to. And that,
Mhm.
have to really truly work from, like, who I'm being and the choices that I make and what I want my life to look like, while
Yeah.
also still being able to mentor and deliver and be what I say I'm going to be to those who enter into my programs. And this applies to private practice, and other jobs as well. So anywho, I'll turn it back over to you, but that's my
Yeah, I
rant.
mean, that's so true. It applies in everything. I mean, that just goes back to living intentionally,
Yeah.
because this is what I want to be. I mean, a lot of people give more thought. A lot of people research mascara, whatever mascara they want on Amazon, more than they're researching their retirement plan, their financial plan, what kind of job they want to have. And and again, it's you make that choice, or the choice is made for you.
Right.
If you're putting more time into I'm not even gonna lie, like I have the Zoom filter on this thing that like makes me look like I kind of have some
Me
makeup
too.
on.
Me too.
Yes.
I like filters. That's okay.
Yes, yes. Because I know nothing about makeup. But anyways, but putting more time into like I remember I had that conversation with a friend of mine who she wasn't happy with her job. She felt like she felt like where she was in her career wasn't where she wanted to be. I said, well, how much time have you put into looking into something else? Oh, well, I thought about this or this. I said, okay, all right. So you maybe thought about it for what, 30 minutes? How much time were you watching that chick with the bronzer and makeup and what is it, contour? What the heck is that? I
Right.
don't know. I don't know. Which again, if you want to go watch YouTube and get some contour, that's cool. Like, I think that's great. But
Priorities.
exactly, but you need to be intentional and walk in wisdom as you're choosing what you're going to do with your time and with your money. And just like you said, and it's so funny, the semantics, Hallie. So you said it's not. You were using the phrase "it's not hard, it's ease," and it actually, oddly enough, made me think of and I saw this talk from Steve Harvey years ago, and I bring it up all the time of how he talks about choose your hard.
Oh, interesting.
Yes, but it's the same thing you're saying is you can choose the hard of not being happy in your life and career and your money and feeling stuck and that you have absolutely no control over what's happening to you, or you can choose the hard of putting yourself out there and getting out of your comfort zone and actually getting out there to do the dang thing, which in the end is actually easier.
Well, and you're putting yourself into ease, right? So it's like you said, it's all semantics. And so we're basically, you know, when I cut you off earlier, which was really rude of me, and I was like, no, it doesn't have to be hard. I was like, well, that was really obnoxious, Hallie. But I think it's like you said, it's all semantics, and we're saying the exact same thing, right? And it all comes back to choice. We keep talking about that. You have a choice, and you can also choose to stay in that victim mindset of like, well, this is the life I signed up for, and this is what I get when I, you know, because this is what I decided to do. Or you can choose to step out of that. And again, easier said than done, especially if you don't know how to do it. But what I encourage people to do is get some books or start reading some things that's going to help you shift your thinking, because it's really that subconscious thinking. Like, why do people, and I'm not a relationship expert, but I'm going to use an example. Why do people keep going back to abusive relationships? Maybe it's with a different person. It's because that's their subconscious identity. That's how they identify. And until they work with somebody that can help them shift that, if they're not unable to do it themselves, they will continue to repeat the patterns. And I'm not saying this in, again, I'm not an expert in this at all, but I think that it's a really good, like, non-SLP example of why people continue to stay stuck, or why people continue to go back and repeat. Like, maybe they go get a new job, but the job is like basically a replica of the job they had before. Maybe it's in a different setting, same pay, still being like overworked. You know, it's, again, it comes back to your subconscious mindset. How do you value yourself? Who do you identify as? What do you think you're worthy of? You know, because if you don't think you're worthy of more, you're going to sit there and be afraid to ask for more in a job interview. Maybe they have a little wiggle room, but guess what? The person who asks for it is the person who gets it. So they're not always coming to you with the highest offer. Now, if you get a 50K offer, I wouldn't go back and ask for 25K more. I mean, that's a little bit obnoxious, but do your research and find out, like, what could you ask for based on your experience? And then maybe if you're a specialist, maybe you can command more, right? Especially if you know what other competitors in the area are paying. But again, that's what you're saying. Do the research. You know, I mean, I'm guilty. I like Netflix. I'll sit there and watch it for hours on end. I'm like on a bender right now with like a show that I found, and I'm like, I can't stop watching it. And I go through phases where sometimes I'm like, I just need to turn my brain off and turn on some Netflix. And there's other times where I don't watch TV for months, right? So I'm not passing any judgment. This is like, I joke, it's my ADHD brain. Like, one day I'm like, I need this. And then I get stuck. And then I'm like, all right, I'm burnt out on Netflix. I'm good for like months.
Oh yeah. My husband literally just made that comment to me, because I'll be like on a show, like I'll watch The Good Place in a solid like 2 weeks. But after that, I was like, all right, I'm good now.
It's so funny. You know, it'd be so interesting for cameras to like follow us like SLP entrepreneurs around and like watch our actual behaviors, because they probably would think we're pretty erratic. I mean, look, you've never heard me say, I get up at 5 a.m. and I have coffee, and then I sit with my journal and I do my daily affirmations, and then I go to the gym or work out of my house, and then I get my kids up and make them breakfast. Oh, hell nah. Like, you guys, I'm a night owl. I sleep late. My husband gets up with the kids in the morning. I have an amazing au pair who helps with our kids too and takes over at 8:30 in the morning. And I'm still sleeping sometimes. Cat's out of the bag, y'all. Like, I am not an early riser. I do not get up. I don't read very often. I don't like reading. It's not enjoyable for me. I'll listen to things on audiobooks. I used to do it a lot more when I was driving around more, and then we had a pandemic. So I probably haven't really read much of anything in the past year. Not going to lie. I mean, I am real. I will tell you guys, you can be successful without having a morning routine. My morning routine is like, stay out of my face until I've been up for an hour, because I can't process anything. And that's when my husband, I love him to death, but like, he wants to have all the conversations as soon as I wake up. And I'm like, do not talk to me about anything important until I'm like,
wait till this cup is empty, and then we can
like, don't talk to me right now. I mean, and sometimes I will stay in my bedroom, like I'll get ready for the day, but I'll like answer emails. So I'll get on my phone and start answering emails at like 8:30 or 9 a.m. And then I might not leave my bedroom until 11. Like, I might not come down for my coffee. Actually, frequently don't come down for my coffee until 11 a.m. Like, that's just my routine. Unless I have morning meetings and I have to be on my computer, I am not in my office before like 11. That's just, and it's not because I'm working out. I probably should, but it's not because of that. Because, you know, you see all those people on social media who are like, here's my perfect morning routine. And then I get the kids off to school and I'm like, well, my kids are home because of a pandemic. So there's none of that. And then, I do this and I do that. And, no, I'm over here like, that's none of me.
Exactly. And there's nothing wrong with that, because I know, I'm glad we're talking about this, is I know I do better when I wake up early. Like, I know that I do better that way, but that's because that's just how I do better.
Right.
It's not, it's all about knowing yourself. And there's something you said to have,
and not making it wrong.
Exactly. And just a level of self-awareness.
Yeah. I mean, look, when my child is back in school in the fall, because they'll be back in school, in person when they reopen, will I have to adjust my schedule? Probably, because I'm a mother and that's a responsibility of mine. But right now in a pandemic, like, this is how my life is working and this is how it works for me. And so you do you, boo. Like, my husband always says that to me. He's like, you do you, boo. And it's one of those things where, one of my mentors said to me too, he was like, if you don't make it wrong, it's not wrong. It just is. Right. And I talked about that before. And, I've actually had two mentors basically say that to me. And he's also a night owl, and I'll see like him up posting or working or whatever until like 2, 3 in the morning. And that's just what he does. And that's where I used to, and this is like full vulnerability. I used to do that and then have to wake up at 8 or 7 and go treat, family stuff, treat, come back, do it all again. Like, I was operating on very little sleep. Energizer bunny. This is how I killed my adrenals more than once in my life. And you think you'll learn the lesson the first time. Yeah, it takes like 2 or 3.
It's okay.
But it's one of those things where I was making it wrong. So but I was still doing it. So even though I was doing it, I was then stressing over how this is not the right way. I should be a better mom. I should be going to bed earlier so I can get up earlier so that I have more energy, so that I can do X, Y, and Z, so I can work out and be this perfect parent and perfect business owner. There's no such thing as perfectionism. Like, we can go there next, but like, that doesn't exist. Right. Mm-hmm. So it's just one of those things where, like, when someone finally said to me, why are you making it wrong? Like, you're a night owl. It just is what it is. And I was like, oh yeah, that's a good perspective. Okay. Well, that feels ease. That feels like ease. And like, when I allowed it to be easy, I let it be easy and chose ease over my life choices. Mm-hmm. And what worked for me, it just felt better. And the stress on my shoulders just disappeared. It literally was gone. And I was like,
I love that.
Whoa.
and it's, are you doing what you need to do to meet your goals? Like, I think there's we need to change our measuring stick.
Right.
A lot of people, we use this measuring stick of what everyone else is doing, what everyone says I should be doing. Like, for you, okay, everyone says like I should be getting up early and going to the gym, blah, blah, blah. We need to get rid of that measuring stick and make some goals. Yeah. And use that as your measuring stick.
We need our own IEPs, our own treatment plans.
Exactly. Yeah. Because that way you're in control of what is successful for you. Because what looks successful for me, AKA me meeting my goals, is not going to be the same thing as what is meeting or successful or meeting your goals for Hallie or for Sally Sue or whoever. And I think we need to change how we're measuring, and we have to be patient with ourselves. And because I'll tell you this, Hallie, I get DMs from people a lot about like private practice, because, and like I said, I'm very open with the fact that right now it's just me and I really enjoy it. We might be changing that in the future, whatever. And so I get a lot of questions from people who are kind of just in that starting out mode, and they're like, well, I feel like I'm not doing what I'm supposed to be doing, or blah, 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 blah. And then I'll tell them, I'll say, well, what's going on? Tell me. And then they tell me what they're doing. And I said, well, it sounds like you are doing all the things you're supposed to be doing. You're not going to start your private practice the second. Like, it sounds like a great example. You have a school contract that you're locked into until May. Right. But so you have like a non-compete thing, so you can't start till May. But you got your LLC, you're kind of getting together, you're taking some CEUs, you're doing all the stuff you need to be doing. You just have to wait, like you're preparing and paving the way and taking the steps to prepare yourself to take that step in May.
Yeah.
but it just ain't May.
It's that overdoing nature that we get stuck in. Like, it's that whole being versus doing. Are you being the person that is going to be ready to
Yes.
have that private practice open doors May 1? Or are you just getting stuck in the doing and I need to do more because it's not, May's not here yet. And like, what else can I do until May is here so that everything is perfect on day 1 when I onto my private practice? And like, that's just not how, I mean, you will drive yourself into the ground with like working from that mentality. Absolutely. Yep. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, and that's really where it comes back to staying in the being, staying in choice, like choose. And there's a really great book that I read like very early on in my like network marketing career called Eat That Frog. Have you read that one?
No, I've not. I'm writing it down. I have not even.
Okay, so Eat That Frog. I don't remember who writes it. It's in my closet behind me, but I'll break my neck climbing on this chair trying to get it down. It might be Brian Tracy, but I could be totally wrong. I'll Google that while we're talking. Anyways, the whole concept of, and it's a quick read. So for ADHD people like myself, you can literally read it like very quickly, and it's very like non-fluff, like actionable stuff. So yeah, it is by Brian Tracy. Wow, can't believe I remembered that. Anyways, so the whole idea, so it's Eat That Frog, 21 great ways to stop procrastinating and get more done in less time. And what I really love about part of it is he helps you prioritize the things that you actually need to do. And what you figure out is like, first thing in the morning, eat your 2 frogs for the day. Like look, I don't always eat it first thing in the morning, but I make sure that whatever I need to do is on my calendar for the day. And the things that do not need to get done today, if I'm feeling like this feels like a lot, and I think I'm like, we're going to push it to the next day, or maybe we're going to push it to next week. And I just do this on my Google Calendar. And if you can see my sticky notes everywhere, like they get out of control and I start to feel overwhelmed. And I'm like, it's time to make one big sticky note and put all of these onto a sticky note, versus like, sometimes I go through them real quick. I crumple it up and I recycle it. It just depends how I'm feeling that day. Like, what do I need for myself right now to continue to take these actionable steps and to feel successful in this moment, right? What does that look like? And so for this, it was really great because Eat That Frog was like, you take those 2 big frogs. Like, what are those 2 big frogs you have to swallow today? Get them. He says, get them done first thing in the morning. Okay. Again, that doesn't feel good for me. So I get them done sometime during the day because I do me. But I recognize that like there's an A and a B and a C and a D, and C and D can get done later. Like nobody's going to die if C and D don't get done today, but A and B, I'm going to be out of integrity and I'm going to be like anxious over that if I don't get those 2 things done, like I said I would today. So, but that's where we also have to be so careful not to overcommit, right? To too many deadlines, because then you're like, oh gosh, now I can't sleep because I have too many frogs that I need to eat today. So anyway, so it's a great, interesting read. And I think it's a really easy read for people who are like feeling like I got to do all the damn things, but I don't really know like what to do or what do I do first? It helps you prioritize.
Yeah. You have to. There's just so many, like if and you're probably the same way. If someone was in my brain, it would be like, what in the heck is going on? There's like 5 games of tennis. Somebody's bouncing something off the wall. Like there's one person over there looking at a squirrel. Like there's a dog. What? There's so many things pulling at us. And I mean, and I say this all the time. I said, I'm not, me and my husband, we don't have children yet. Yeah. So I know it's even, and as we're kind of planning that next stage of our life, like that's something I'm thinking too, like, okay, like if I'm playing this many rounds of like epic ping pong in my head right now, what is it? And you have to
children just mess it all up. I love my kids, but don't get me wrong. They're work. Kids are work. And they also, it's sort of like a therapy session. You go in with this beautiful plan and you're like, oh, I'm going to be this kind of parent and I'm going to do this with my kids. And then you have kids and it all goes out the window and you're like, so much for planning, to the point where like I refused to read baby books when I was pregnant. One, because I don't like to read. I just told you guys that. But 2, I'm also internally referenced. So I'm like, I don't want someone to tell me what to do unless I'm seeking specific information on what to do, and then 3, I was like, I'll do what I have to. So we have to take a hospital class. So we'll do that birthing class and the hospital class and whatever else. Fine. But yeah, I was like, I'm just going to kind of figure it out as I go and ask people along the way who I want information from. And yeah, it was one of those, I compared it to therapy. You go in with this beautiful plan. You've created these beautiful games, like these activities to work on your goals for that patient. And then everything goes out the window because they are having an off day. And you're like, so much for that plan.
Yeah. Oh, I believe you. Like I said, I don't have to have them to believe you. And it's just, there's so many things pulling at us all day long. And again, back to what we said about just that personality type of an SLP, we care so much. Like a lot of the terrible things that we end up doing to ourselves are because of how much we value other people over ourselves.
Yeah.
How much we value other people over our own time. And
or we lie to ourselves and we say that like we are doing like the work that we're called for by spreading ourselves so thin and giving ourselves to everybody else, because that like I'm in a helping profession, and who would I be if I say, you know what, no, I really can't help answer that in a DM, or no, I really can't coach you for free, or no, I really can't, you know. And these are things that I'm guilty of doing this early on in my career. I coached business owners for free, and I was exhausted after I get off the phone with them, and I was like, I have a young child and she deserves my energy. I have none left. So if I'm going to do this, it's going to be a business, and and that's where I started coaching for, money in exchange early on. And my rates have, climbed over the years based on my own experience, what I've done in my business, what I'm able to coach on. And that's where I encourage everybody to start like looking at how much you value yourself and your self-worth. And it's not an easy thing because a lot of us don't have a lot of self-worth. And I've learned that just from doing these launches for my course and my membership, where I talk about self-worth 1 of the 5 days. And so many of the SLPs, OTs, RDHs, whoever it might be for whichever program I'm launching, they're like sending me DMs and they're like, wow, like I never realized how much I don't value myself and how I put everybody else's needs before my own. Well, this is what leads to burnout.
Yes.
And it is not wrong to say, you know what, I really can't coach you for free in a DM. It's not wrong to not answer somebody's DM. That's your choice. I mean, I choose to answer all of mine, and I choose to bring on help to answer some of mine sometimes if I'm in a launch, because it just gets insane and I literally won't sleep if I'm trying to answer all the DMs. But my team will leave certain ones for me to respond to if it's really specific and it's something that I need to respond to, versus like, hey, how do I get this link, or how do I get to this web page, or how, like a more technical question. Yeah, you learn a lot about yourself, like being a business owner, if you allow yourself to be, or if you allow yourself to step into the role of being open to learning about yourself. And again, I don't think that anything I've done was wrong. It's who I needed to be at that time to learn what I needed to learn on my own journey. And so I really encourage others, like, even if you're feeling overwhelmed, like listening to Danny and I speaking now, like, you do what feels right for you. And what feels right today might be different 6 months down the road. So you have to constantly be like revisiting this conversation, because it's going to change at every step of the way. Like, you buy a house, it changes. You have children, it changes. You take a new career, it changes. You decide to start seeing patients on the side, it changes. It goes from summer to fall, it changes. I mean, there's big life things that happen, and then there's little life things that just happen, and things shift in us. So we have to constantly be checking in with ourselves and be asking the question, like, how am I feeling? Like, how do I feel today? Am I overwhelmed? Like, have I taken on too much? Do I need to pull in the reins? Do I need to maybe, you know what? I just said yes to that yesterday, but that actually is not in alignment with me. Like, I'm not too deep into this. I can go back and say no. Like, it is okay to say no. In fact, I encourage you to say no more than you say yes.
It all goes back to being intentional and like, how are you making your decisions? Yeah. Whenever you're choosing to say yes or choosing to say no, are you doing it based off of just like, oh, I feel bad? Or is it, oh, I've taken the time to really outline these pillars or these values that I have in my life? Like you said earlier, family and making money were two of your values, that you value, things that you have in your life.
Yeah.
Using those, like, every time you make a decision, go back to those, go back to those, go back to those.
Yes, exactly.
One thing that I've learned in life is that, and I see this across everyone, not just myself, I need to learn the same lesson over and over and over and over and over again. And I have to practice it over and over and over and over again.
That's how we learn, repetition.
That's how we do therapy. Just because a kid gets an R in isolation, he's not going to go start talking about Wrigley the rabbit in the rucksack while he's out with his friends. You have to keep doing it over and over again, and you have to give yourself the grace and the patience.
Yeah.
But you also have to give yourself you have to have that anchor, and you have to have that measuring stick, because that is something that I have to keep practicing, is going back to, what are my values? Okay, I'm in this situation. I'm not going to make this choice based off of emotion, based upon feeling bad, based upon whatever. I'm going to go back to my values that I sat and thought about, instead of watching the 30-minute video on how to contour my face. And I'm going to use that as like the pillars of who I am as a person. And same thing whenever like me and my husband make decisions together. When we make decisions, it's not just like, oh, what do we feel like right in this moment?
Right.
There's nothing wrong with going with what you feel like in that moment, but it just goes back to those things that you decided these are non-negotiables.
When it's so much easier to do that. If you know what your top 3 values are in life, it is so much easier to just ask the question, you know what, this is a really great opportunity. I'm honored, but unfortunately that does not align with like what my plans are right now.
Mm-hmm.
That's what you can say to somebody, and they're not going to be upset with you. They're just going to be like, oh, okay. And you can even say, check back with me later. Maybe things will be, something might be different a year later when they approach you again. And that, I've been asked to speak at conferences. I've been asked to have courses on various platforms. I've been asked to do all kinds of things, but you know what? It wasn't aligned with my business goal at the time. And then there were opportunities that came along where at the end of last year, I was asked to present for Talk Tools. And it was, that was an alignment that I was like, well, I don't want to talk actually about myo as a therapy process or, clinically. I want to talk about being a business owner in the myo space. Like if I can present on that, like that's in alignment with where I am right now. And they were like, yeah, absolutely. I was like, okay, great. Right. But they came to me and asked me, I asked them for what was in alignment for me to participate in this. They said yes. And guess what? I just presented on that. Yeah. And so, it really comes down to like, where are you right now? What are your values? What makes sense for you right now? Again, that can change a month from now, 6 months from now, a year from now. So, it's not no forever unless it really is out of alignment. You're like, I will never do this. That's a different story, but there's a lot of opportunities that show up because I'm open to them. It doesn't mean I have to say yes to them just because they presented themselves to me, right? You need to be smart about like you're saying, is it in alignment with my top values? And if it's not, how much easier is it to say, you know what, this really is not something that I'm going to be able to commit to right now, but thank you so much for, reaching out. You can let them down easy, right? And guess what? There's other people they can go ask to. You're not the only one.
Do it on purpose. Like that's the biggest thing.
With intention, on purpose. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
Do it on purpose, because a lot of the times the weird, terrible, not fun situations we get ourselves into are because we weren't acting purposefully. Yeah. Like it totally breaks my heart when I get DMs where they're like, I'm in $175,000 worth of student loan debt and I'm at a $55,000 job. Like that breaks my heart. But the point of it is, it sounds like, and it's not blaming or anything like that, because I hurt for them, because a lot of times those decisions to take all that money was made without guidance, and those decisions were made without intention. Mm-hmm. It was just made in this frenzy that we get into, of like this emotional frenzy that we get into of like, oh, okay, I got to do whatever I have to do to get through school, right. Whatever field it is. And when you're doing these things, just like, that's all I want people to do, is just do stuff on purpose. Right. And if you actually think about a lot of the things that you do, the things that lead to burnout, the things that lead to you being broke and having no money, like a lot of that stuff is just like, you just were like, oh, I'm going to go over here. But what? Okay, there's that TikTok where it's like, what do it be? What do it be? I watched one earlier and I said, that is what, I feel like that's how some people go through life, is they go, like, like, oh, okay, that's great. Oh yeah, I'll take on those extra kids. Oh yeah, I'll do that. Oh yeah, I'll do all that extra paperwork and take extra time, even though you're not paying me more for it. It's like, you just do it on purpose. Purpose.
Right. You're not saving anybody else by saying yes. And in fact, you're driving yourself into the ground.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. And when you do it on purpose, and when you make the choice, if things don't work out, first of all, you can't blame anyone else but yourself, which, I mean, that's cool. But then it's like, okay, now I'm just gonna put on my pants and let's try again.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. Well, this has been so amazing, Danny. I know we could talk like all day long, but And maybe we'll do this again. I know I'm going to be on your podcast soon, so we'll continue the conversation there, right?
Yeah, I'm so excited.
I know it's going to be so fun. But, I think that really like the biggest thing that's come from this, and I love having these like open, vulnerable conversations because like I said, like I don't want to be that person sitting at the top where people are like, oh my gosh, Hallie's so successful. Like she just does it all. You guys, I have a big team of people who help me on a day-to-day. They are amazing therapists. They are amazing admins. They are amazing, like I am the visionary, and yes, I do create a lot of content and stuff along. I couldn't do that without them. And I couldn't manage any of this without them. And at one point I tried, and I am no longer willing to drive myself into the ground to be the do-it-all and overdoer that I once was. So like I joke, I'm a recovering overdoer, but I've just learned, and this is from a lot of like mentors that I've paid a lot of money to and programs that I've paid, to be a part of, where I've been able to step into truly learning about myself and learn to stay in the being and not the doing, and stay in choice and just have that willingness to be open to even have those opportunities so I can make those choices. And like you said, Danny, like be intentional in your choices, in your decisions, and make sure they align with your values. I mean, there's so many good nuggets that we gave today that all goes back to, if you are stuck right now, like sit with this, write down. We have show notes. You can go download them. Like you don't have to take your own notes, but like look at the notes and think about how this applies to your life and how could you make a change, right? If you're feeling stuck, burnt out, you want to make a change. What other choices are out there? Start going to research that, and just remember to stay in choice and remember that there are other options. Even if you feel stuck right now, you are not stuck. You are not stuck. You could be severely in debt. There are plenty of people who have gotten themselves out of debt, and I'm not going to advise you on that. So you're going to want to go do your own research or listen to Danny more on some of those topics maybe, but yes, that's important. I'm not saying ignore the debt by any means, but there are ways to get out of debt and start to step into alignment with your values and what that looks like for you. So hopefully this was helpful, and it wasn't just, a Hallie and Danny rant. I know we gave a lot of good nuggets today, but re-listen to this because there was so much gold in here, you guys, that I have paid tens of thousands of dollars to learn from mentors, that I wish I had like a podcast where I could have just sat down and like heard all this gold in one podcast. It probably would have gone over my head, to be honest with you, like a couple of years ago, but recognize there is some good stuff in here. Oh goodness. So anyway, so thank you, Danny, so much for coming on. Are there any last shares you want to share with us? Any last topics we want to talk about?
I think, just do it on purpose, and you're going to be the only one that's limiting yourself. And also be patient with yourself, because you're hopefully you got some of the good nuggets from this. And if you're leaving this conversation on fire, you're like, yes, I'm going to go do this. Figure out what your values are. Like that's going to be my action step for you is if you're just kind of like, okay, now I want to go do all these awesome things, and now I'm kind of feeling overwhelmed because this conversation made me feel on fire. When you turn this podcast off, whenever you have time, I want you to sit down and write your 3 values out. Or maybe if you have a partner or a spouse, talk with them about just your values as a family, and then think about your values as an individual, and then make a plan for steps that you can get to and go through to meet that goal, and understand that that goal may not happen right now. Just like Hallie said, don't get caught up in the doing, but I have these intentional steps in my head that's going to take me where I want to be. Yeah. And that just makes you excited to get up every single day. And that is what I hope. That's what I want for everybody out there, because that's how it should be.
Yeah, because we need to elevate each other. So,
yes.
I'll plug my little movement, elevate each other. But no, really, if we were all in a profession where everybody was trying to elevate each other and trying to support each other in doing these things that we want to go out and do, right? It would be so much easier to be those people, wouldn't it? But that's just not the reality. So it all comes back to just like you said, like you gave them some really great action steps. And I actually just trained on this in my Talk Tools training about values and understanding your values, even as a business owner, and what the values are for your business, and working from that in your marketing and in creating what your business looks like. And so I love this values topic. It's such a great tip, Danny. Thank you for sharing that, because if you do what Danny said and you go and you sit down, and if you're like, I don't know what values are, I don't even know what to pick from, go Google list of values. Just Google list of values. I promise you will get images that show up with like 50, 100 values written on them. And you can start to go through and like pull out the ones that resonate with you, that you feel like really truly are, because there are so many out there that mine are not going to be the same as yours. But if making money is important to you, I will tell you that money, wealth, or something related to financial freedom needs to be one of your top 3. And if it's not, you've got some work to do.
Yes. Money doesn't buy happiness, but it buys actions. And I will tell you this, since me and my husband have gotten out of debt and that's worked our financial plan, we've been able to be much more generous and give to causes that we would have never been able to give to had we be giving that money to payments every month.
And this is another conversation for another day, but a magical thing happens when you start to donate and you start to do like INI, where you're basically just giving without expecting anything in return. Maybe you're paying for that person's coffee in front of you, or you overhear somebody saying like, oh my gosh, like I left my credit card at home, and you step over and you hand your credit card over so they can pay for their grocery bill, or, just unexpected things like out of the blue, like acts of, kindness or generosity or whatever, or you're going and making a $10,000 donation to a nonprofit, like what, or more, or whatever the case may be. I will tell you, when you do things like that, they come back tenfold. And so I actually believe no matter where you are in your life, whether you can help give 25 cents or you can help give $25,000, you got to start that practice. And we can talk about that on another episode.
When you come on the Speech Goods podcast, I'm going to put some bullet point. I have my notebook.
Awesome.
We're going to chat.
We will continue the conversation on the Speech Goods podcast.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Danny. This has been amazing. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Of course.
Thanks for listening to this podcast. If you want to hear more of these Myo, Tots, Airway, and feeding related episodes, be sure to leave a review on Apple Podcasts or pledge a small amount on patreon.com/the Untethered Podcast. If you found value, others in this space will too. So be sure to share this episode on your social media platforms and join us over on Facebook, on my Facebook page at Hallie Bulkin Biz, on Instagram at Hallie Bulkin, and you can head over to theuntetheredpodcast.com to grab a copy of the show notes, where you can also subscribe to be kept up to date on the latest podcast episodes.